Chapter 3: Hearth. The sun setting over the horizon signaled the ending of that fateful day. The tribals, as always, prepared themselves for another bitter night, lighting their campfires and huddling in their social circles. As evening progressed, gossip, imaginations, and emotions erupted in the camp. There was much discussion around both the red-haired stranger and that of the severed beast's head that Moldream was rumored to have in the camp. High above the growing rumors, Moldream was perched in darkness. He looked on, lost in thought. The only way he could believe what had happened was to show the head to a few others at the camp, such as Feldream, he mused. Thankfully, Spiral had arrived back in the camp soon after Moldream had left. As it turned out, she had been jesting to her sister about venturing into the city. Instead, she had gone to fetch fresh water from a storm trap. Moldream thought about the wildly odd experience of the day, casting his mind to the fight, a battle that should have been utterly one-sided, and should definitely have not turned out the way it did. The encounter with the beast was so unexpected, especially in the early hours of the morning on what seemed like just another dull day. Averting his eyes and adjusting them to the shadows, he stared at the unwrapped serpent's head. It was an atrocious nightmare made manifest, not just for Moldream, but for the other tribals too. He thought about the young red-haired woman he had rescued. There was something about her. That young woman's ability to heal his wounds that were certain to have killed him, thrice, was wondrous to him. "I guess you weren't full of shit, old man," Moldream muttered to the severed head. "But to see your stories with my own eyes." Her words triggered the blade's secret power, which would have remained secret were it not for her mystical singing. Surely guns were far superior weapons, and far more effective at ranged or close-quarters combat. Who would forge such a powerful two-hander with such a handicap? Moldream briefly recalled leaving the dilapidated library with the young woman and leading her back to the camp. She didn't say a word and shivered the whole way, stumbling a couple of times due to exhaustion from, he could only assume, a long journey. Once they had arrived in the camp, he led her to Larkham's tent and put her to bed under the old man's fur blankets to keep her warm. With a hand from Feldream and Spiral, they offered her water. The stranger was so thirsty she drank 4 water skins dry before finally dozing off. Moldream then remembered her companions. As promised, he had gone back with a dozen fellow hunters. Together they retrieved the bodies and equipment and brought them all back to the camp. For the majority of the afternoon, Spiral prepared the stranger's friends for burials. However, until the mysterious young woman awoke, she didn't want to give the order to bury the bodies just yet. "Oh yeah," Moldream thought, retrieving a small pouch from his coat. He opened his leather satchel to reveal a dozen spherical crystals. These glowing orbs had been lying on the dirt near the disemboweled men, having been spilled all over the place. Similar crystalline spheres were also inserted into the metal of the slain men's armor and weapons. Moldream was reminded of a bag of marbles, only these spheres were twice the size of any ordinary glass marbles, and they glowed. Inside the pouch, red, blue, yellow, and green hues emanated from them. Moldream was utterly fascinated and wondered if these objects were also magical in nature, much like the red-haired songstress. He intended to ask the stranger how she achieved such feats, the likes of which he had never before seen or known. A few tribes, people such as Larkham, had some mystical ability to heal illnesses or injuries, or pray to the spirits for help. This certainly wasn't common, however, and was definitely not something that could be achieved in mere seconds. Maybe it was the fact that the redhead chanted or sang those special words. Perhaps this healing power was something he could learn? Perhaps Larkham could benefit from this stranger's magic and knowledge. These thoughts flared brightly in Moldream's imagination. This power could change how they all lived, perhaps give the tribe greater strength. He figured it wouldn't hurt the camp to explain the truth of the tale fighting this creature. After all, the tribals had settled down by the fires, and he could already hear some laughing in disbelief. Moldream rose and grabbed the head by one of its thick horns. Adjusting the sword in his scabbard, he made his way down the temple steps. The encounter fed him with a sense of pride and purpose, and, for once, it made him feel oddly optimistic for the future. The young woman was fidgeting in her sleep, words escaping her lips from time to time until she finally stirred. "Help!" she blurted, bolting upright vigorously. Gasping, the red-haired stranger afforded herself a moment to calm her anxiety and gripped the rugged fur bedding in relief. She closed her eyes and remembered being led into this spacious tent, crafted from well-preserved animal skins. She sighed, realizing she had never asked for the warrior's name and was gripped by shame. She wanted to thank him and hoped to see him again soon. A small handmade candle was present on the floor, its flame wavering from the invading cold draft. The flap of the tent was slightly open, and she saw that night had fallen. Briefly, she thought of the library. She raised her fingers to her tremoring lips, lightly whimpered, and recalled the horror that befell her friends. Then, out of the darkness in a corner of the tent, there came a voice. "Don't panic." "Who are you?" the woman screeched, eyes searching the darkness, hands clutching the blanket to her chest. "You're safe here, it's okay," an old man spoke softly. "Reveal yourself," she blurted in fear. From the darkened corner of the tent, Larkham appeared in full view in the pale light. "I didn't mean to offend you, miss. We have all been worried about you," he replied, his hand reaching out to clasp hers gently. "My son found you in the city, saving you from a vicious beast, or so he claims." "I'm sorry I shrieked," she spoke softly, her eyes meeting his. "Yes, he did. I am so very grateful. I've been on a long journey from the south with my companions." "I see," he replied. "By the sounds of it, you've had a hard time. What happened, if you don't mind me asking, of course?" But before that, could I ask for your name?" "Yes, I'm sorry," she replied, struggling to return the smile. "I'm Angelite Rose, but Angelite is fine." "Sorry, you have nothing to be sorry for, Miss Angelite Rose," he said, watching her brow slightly furl. "I am Bobby Larkham, the leader of this band of tribals, but please, just Larkham will do." "Right then, my apologies, sweetheart. Would you mind telling me what happened?" Angelite was apprehensive. She had only just awoken and was being confronted by a complete stranger, nice as he was. "I'm sorry, give me a moment," she said, tears beginning to stream down her cheeks. "It's okay, I understand." The old man spoke gently, shifting his way to embrace her with one arm. "Your son? Did he go back?" Angelite sniffed, trying her best to control her emotions. "To the library, I mean." Yes, he did," Larkham muttered. "He gathered a dozen of the best hunters in the camp and led the effort. Your friends are being preserved by our tribe's mortician, Spiral." "Spiral, that's a lovely name," Angelite said, unable to control her tears. I failed all of them." "I'm so grateful, thank you so much." "You failed no one, my dear," Larkham tried to assure her. "There are many dangers out there. You can't blame yourself for situations out of your control." Angelite could no longer speak. Her mouth was wide, face cringing, her hands tightly gripping Larkham's thick winter robes. For a long time, all Larkham could do was cuddle the young woman in her grief. Eventually, Angelite found the courage to speak. "I traveled to this part of the world for knowledge hidden in books or historical artifacts. We found that ruined library, which I'm guessing is nearby." "Yes, we're situated on the outskirts of the city," Larkham said. "My son left this morning and that's how he found you." "I see," she replied, sniffing her running nose. "We traveled across the ocean, from the west. It's been a long journey, several weeks, probably close to a month since we left my home, Meridia." The old man coughed abruptly. Angelite paused as Larkham tapped his chest lightly with a clenched fist. "Meridia, you say?" he said in astonishment. "Yes," she said, raising an eyebrow curiously. "So, the spirit's whispers are right about this city after all," he muttered, staring down at the ground with his arms crossed, his hand serving to stroke his dark beard. "Spirits?" she said, gasping. "Spirits have told you of my home?" "Indeed, I am blessed with the gift of the ability to hear them," he said, his grin brief. "I guide my tribals the best I can by divining what they have to say in my dreams." I see, she said, shuffling upright, hands clasping tightly to the old blankets, eyes widening, her posture positive. There are a few in Meridia that have that gift too, Larkham. You are a wise man. It's a difficult gift to use, but from my travels and through the cycles of years, it has become easier, Larkham said, his voice almost trembling. In my dreams they show me visions of a glistening city, salvation awaiting the people I care for. It is a pleasant dream. Ordinarily, I wouldn't believe such claims, yet from the look of your fine robes I can't question it. The answer is staring right at me. It is very real, Larkham, I can assure you, she said with enthusiasm. I was born and raised there. I belong to a guild in Meridia, called the Order of Spirit. I'm a priestess, and my rank is Sapphire. Oh, I see, Larkham said, his enthusiasm growing also. May I ask what a rank of Sapphire means? Of course, she said. The first rank is Ruby, when you first become a member. After that, the second rank is Topaz. Third is Citrine, fourth is Emerald, and the fifth rank is my rank, which is Sapphire. I see, he said, grinning. Is Sapphire the highest? Not quite, she replied, shaking her head gently. There are two more ranks above mine, which are Lapis and Amethyst. The last is the rank you must reach to teach others. Before you can form an expedition and leave Meridia, you must be Sapphire at the minimum. Oh, that explains it, he said, nodding. So you're here as part of your guild to investigate these lands and to hunt for old treasures? Yes, this is the first time I've set foot outside the safety of Meridia's walls, she replied. We landed far to the south. Our aim was to collect anything of interest as we headed north, and then rendezvous at another Meridian expeditionary port after our mission, she said, her voice beginning to quake, tears swelling once more. I wish I hadn't, my friends, they were. It's okay, he said, cradling her gently from side to side for a short time as she sobbed. I've known nothing like it. Why did I leave? She blubbered, the names of her friends barely pausing from her lips. All gone. Half a candle melted while she let out her pain. Larkham continued to hold her tightly, trying his best to console as she hyperventilated. I'm sorry, Angelite croaked, trying desperately to stop weeping. I'll never get over it. I'm so overwhelmed right now. That's quite all right, sweetheart, Larkham said, releasing a depressed sigh. Losing a loved one or a friend is never easy, I must confess. It's commonplace in these lands, unfortunately. Thank you, Larkham, she said, leaning into his shoulder. Sorry, I'm gathering myself the best I can. Thank you for taking care of me. I used so much of my energy when I saved your son from some nasty wounds. I could have done the same for my friends, but that Anunnaki decimated the building before I had any time to react. I was trapped, she said, pausing to catch her breath. There were only a couple of stones between myself and the creature when I spotted your son, atop the balcony. I watched him bolt down the stairs. Larkham smiled proudly at her tale. His foster son had acted with such zeal and bravery against an ancient menace from his legends. I wouldn't have expected Muldream to jump straight into the fray like that, the old man said, smiling. He often plays it safe and never seems to care, but now, I think we both know differently. He had no fear. I managed to escape the rocks and work my healing on him. She paused, steadying herself upright from the old man's shoulder to look him straight in the eyes. But also, I swore I felt another presence in the building. You may not believe me, it felt like it was there, within his sword, reacting to my resonance. His sword, you say? Larkham mumbled. And it was reacting to your resonance. Oh, you didn't know about his sword, she said, frowning slightly in puzzlement. He used it so well, but, at the same time, I saw how dumbstruck he was. He looked surprised at what he was holding, she recalled. The weapon glowed momentarily and, well, that's when he helped me here. I couldn't say anything to him on the way back. I think I was experiencing shock. I just didn't know what to think or do. It sounds like a heroic tale of old, priestess, Larkham said, his shifty eyes hiding the desire to repeat this story to the camp. After all, this was new material. I'm so thankful you both pulled through. Where is he now? Angelite asked. A moment ago you mentioned his name's Moldream. Yes, that's his name, Larkham said, grinning, slowly retreating from the thick rugs and animal furs to pick up his walking stick. We can go find him. Just as long as you're sure you've had enough rest to get out of this bed. I'm fine, thank you. And yes, please, let's find him, she said, cheeks finally lifting to present a beautiful smile, her large green eyes full of hope. I need to personally thank him. Elsewhere in the camp, Moldream was recounting his story. The entire tribe had gathered round. Some were eager to hear of his bloated yet entertaining tale, while others were eager to make jokes at his expense. So, Moldream, what's this going around the camp that you've slain one of those ancient creatures from Larkham's tales? Sneered Malurth, his familiar skepticism adding to air further laughs or jokes. Naturally, some of us here think you're full of shit. See it for yourself, Moldream scoffed, tossing the wrapped head to the dirt. Roll by roll, the head unraveled itself until it ended up at the feet of the middle-aged, straggly-haired tribal. Some in the circle gawked or gasped as they glared at the horned skull in disbelief. Get that cursed thing away from me, Malurth shrieked, jumping back with a stumble and almost tripping over tent wires and pegs in the process. Some of the other tribals shared his view, also dashing away from its presence, yet, at the same time, many were unable to peel their eyes away from its alien pupils. I took it down with this, Moldream said, smirking, drawing his heavy blade from its sleek metallic scabbard, and planting the tip of it in the cold earth. How in the spirits did you do it? Feldream said as she recalled him describing the potential dangers of such creatures during their hunting trip just a few days ago. Privately, she considered herself truly lucky. Each and every member of the tribe compared the size of the sword to Moldream's relatively average height. Many could estimate the size of the creature by the enormous dimensions of the head alone. Moldream simply stood there for a moment, not answering any questions. It wasn't every day that a creature from an old man's legend came to fruition, let alone the ability to tell the tale after surviving such an encounter. In fact, it was the first time. It was a narrow victory, Moldream said humbly, the commotion diminishing as he spoke. Being the center of attention wasn't something Moldream was accustomed to. He certainly wasn't the most popular tribal. However, this time, to the crowd, he seemed somehow different, sincere. Respectfully, the others listened at great length to this young man's encounter as he recounted the events leading up to, and after, the fight. If it wasn't for her magic, I wouldn't be alive now, Moldream said, finishing his story. So why isn't your sword glowing now then? Malurth sniped, clearly jealous. For all we know, you could have found this head lying around and then threatened that poor redhead to go along with your story, for you to act like one of Larkham's mythical heroes. Disbelief in Moldream and his ability to kill anything set in. Some were not inclined to believe his fanciful tale, despite the horned head, but they were few. Moldream decided not to argue. He had no need to prove it. Give him a break, Spiral said. The camp siding with or against Moldream's account. Besides, we saw the body of it when some of us went back with him to retrieve the stranger's friends. He isn't lying, it was putrid and terrifying. Why didn't you just say that to begin with? Malurth snorted. Because he had a right to tell his story, Spiral uttered. It's tradition, you bloody idiot. Who cares about tradition? Mocked one of Malurth's friends, Malstar. He was a foot shorter than Malurth, and also wore thick winter furs. Long scars earned from a bad hunt ran from his eyes to his throat, where he had grown a long brown beard to cover the mangled skin. Did you see the absolute size of them? Even under her winter robes you can tell she has massive breasts. Don't be so fucking disgusting, Feldream shouted from the other side of the gathered circle, the women of the entire tribe also joining in with jeers. Trust you perverts to notice. I'm not surprised you're all jealous. That redhead could practically feed all of us. And the children, Malstar said, laughing alongside Malurth. Moldream's one lucky bastard. I bet she let him have a juggle, and then tugged him off with them. Moldream spat on the ground, seething with absolute hatred. His glare alone made Malstar's hair stand on end. How fucking dare you? She lost all of her companions. Don't rise to them, Moldream, Spiral interrupted, a smirk underlining her lips. They'll never pair with a mate anyway. You know why, everyone? That's right, because we all know they have the smallest cocks. Fuck all of you useless women, Malurth blared. None of you bother to wash the stink from between your foul legs. If you did, we wouldn't have to put up with all our burial mounds being littered by your stillbirths. The entire tribal circle uniformly gasped and then exploded in fury. Any man who was wise enough kept their mouths shut, knowing what was good for them. Malurth and Malstar had decided to pick a fight with almost 100 women, and as a result were on their own to fend for themselves. Missiles were immediately thrown, ranging from rocks to lumps of freshly produced feces. Feldream and Spiral, respectively, were savage with their continued verbal assault, potentially leaving both men mentally scarred for life. I'm out of here, Moldream chuckled, knowing full well that he should leave while the opportunity provided itself. Sliding his two-hander back into its dark scabbard, he gave a swift nod to Feldream and Spiral, while the women of the tribe continued their furious verbal barrage at Malurth and Malstar. Moldream made his way back to the temple. He stood on the open balcony and stared at the camp below, which had begun to settle for the night after the outrage. Perhaps all he says is true, he muttered to himself. Then he turned his attention to the night sky. His eyes casually browsed the twinkling constellations. The wind was calm that night, and the moon appeared brighter than normal as sparse, silver clouds drifted gently across the dark blue aura of the galaxy. The tribal recalled the stranger's harmonious magical chanting. Her voice had struck a chord within him. Breathing in the autumn air, Moldream outstretched his arms and legs. He continued to stare at the stars as he leaned on the balcony's banister. He would have little peace of mind until he had some answers. I thought you'd be up here, Larkham said, his voice echoing from the stairs. Startled, Moldream turned and saw that the old man had arrived with the attractive stranger he had rescued. Yeah, of course, Moldream said, glancing at the young lady and then focusing on Larkham. So, what's the news? We've a lot to discuss, Larkham replied, then turning to the priestess. But I'll let Angelite start. Moldream can never keep his eyes open for more than a minute if I speak. Good point, Moldream quipped against the jest. It's nice to meet you. Angelite, was it? Yes, nice to meet you too, young warrior, she returned with a sweet and gentle tone. I wanted to personally thank you for your help. So thank you so very much. Honestly, you don't have to thank me, Moldream said hastily, waving his hands slightly. I was just in the right place at the right time. I'm no warrior. Is that so? She said, smiling weakly, unable to maintain eye contact for long. Without realizing it, she brushed her long, straight hair several times behind her shoulders. To start off, I wanted to explain why I'm here and what happened this morning. All right, I'm guessing you'll explain a lot of the questions I've been asking myself, Moldream replied, relaxing his tense shoulders. I've wanted to ask you the whole day, what was that beast? I always thought they were just something the old man conjured up. It was the first time I saw one for real. Yeah, the same. That was the first time I saw one in the flesh, she said. They've been a threat to us since the turn of the Dark Age over 150 years ago. Apparently, they were thought of as myth to our ancestors too, before the catastrophe occurred. Just as I have told you many times before in my stories, Larkham said, his concern deep. Moldream merely nodded in response. Since the arrival of this age, we've had a gift unlocked within us, Angelite said. We still don't know how this happened exactly, but it happened. Resonance. You're beginning to lose me, Moldream said. What do you mean by resonance? Angelite lifted up her right hand momentarily and pointed it toward the stars. In the other, she carried her staff. Chiseled on its surface were many symbols neither of the two men could understand. Small, spherical, glowing crystals faintly thrummed on their ears, as if in harmony with one another, and were inserted in circular, metallic slots along the shaft. Atop the staff was another crystalline orb, its surface like that of a white, misty morning. "I know you might not understand right this second, but you may in time," she said, striding to the circular clearing on the balcony. Angelite turned to face the puzzled men. Then, slowly lowering her staff with both hands, the shaft's symbols began to illuminate. "In Inania Triatus Contempus," she chanted, her voice smooth and extremely pleasant on the ears. Her eyes began to glow from a gentle green to violet in hue. Moldream tried his hardest to doubt her power. Both he and Larkham remained silent, in awe of the priestess's craft. Angelite's melody had gained momentum, and soft, golden light spilled about the flooring, its radius growing outward from her feet. Like it was cast from a template, the illumination gained form. Strand by strand, the priestess's hair began to defy gravity. Illophemia denitus shantana. The entire balcony shone, as if many full moons had brightened the circle, radiating outward and touching all corners of the temple. "What you are seeing is the energy within us, the magic of science, sound and soul," she said, her voice full of power. "This is resonance. I can teach you how to find your energy, Moldream. I can take you back to my home, Meridia. Will you come with me?" "Yes, he will go with you," Larkham said, his tone firm. "It's far too dangerous for you to travel alone." "I can make up my own mind, you know," Moldream muttered. "It'll be a full month's journey, and Larkham insisted you would," she said, pursing a cute smirk, eyes filled with hope. "Meridia is a safe haven, a place free of disease, famine, and danger. You will love it, I promise." Her voice was in sharp contrast to her spiritual energy. A golden, wing-like aura arched out from between Angelite's shoulders, reminiscent of a large bird's wings, growing until it filled the entire temple, unfolding in shape and then fading like a flame to the wind. Moments later, the native vines, ivy, and moss that clung to the stone walls grew in an instant. The spell at its end, Angelite's hair was a slave to gravity once more, falling strand by strand. Then, in a rush, the energy stored in the symbols on the staff faded to the air. An aroma from the fresh flora captivated both men. As her spell waned, so too did the glow, leaving the three with just the moon as their sole source of light. "Anything else you would like to know?" Angelite asked. Moldream could hardly decide where to begin. "Were you responsible for what you did to my sword? How did you heal me? What were you doing in that build?" Hold on, one question at a time," she interrupted and chuckled, placing her index finger on his lips. "I'll begin with the sword. In Meridia, we have weapons with runes and crystals, crystal cores as we call them, inserted into the weapons, so I'm guessing you must possess something similar. Where did you find it?" "I found it in a place we call the Deadfield Plains," he confessed. "It's a land outside the city, just north of here." "Against my word," Larkham interrupted. "I warned you about going there." "Oh well, I'm still here, aren't I?" Moldream said, sighing. "That's not the point," Larkham grunted. "Don't do it again, for the love of spirit." "Oh, please, Angelite, continue for both of us," Moldream said, turning to the priestess. Angelite smiled at the quarreling pair. "To answer your other questions, we traveled from the south in search of objects of interest such as books or scrolls." "I'm guessing you're referring to your companions," Moldream interjected, staring into her sad eyes before realizing his insensitivity. "Yes, my friends traveled with me," Angelite answered, bravely containing her feelings. "We ventured north until we reached this city in the early morning. We finally found the library, but then it all happened." "It's okay," Moldream said, watching Larkham hobble over to place a hand on her shoulder for comfort. "Sorry about bringing it up." "No, it's okay. And yes," she added, "we were going to keep traveling north, to a port where we were to rendezvous." "I see. And that creature?" he said tentatively. "They're called the Anunnaki," she answered. "We have records of their existence, but most of our journey was uneventful. We never dreamed of coming across Anunnaki here." "I'm afraid that was just one of however many," Larkham replied. These lands are perilous. They are, Maldream said, focusing on her sweet face. But I'm still having trouble believing what happened this morning, let alone believing what I saw. I'm just glad you're safe. I'm so grateful, thank you, she replied, finding the courage to smile briefly, only to bite her trembling lower lip, her green eyes glistening in the moonlight. I could explain a little more in the morning before I set off. You mean when we set off, right? Maldream said, noticing the sly eye. There's no chance in hell you're going alone. Truth be told, she said, her eyes watering, her face creasing with bitter sadness. I really wasn't expecting you to. I would only let you down, like I did with my... No, it's not happening, Maldream said, his tone confident, deep and unwavering. You aren't leaving without me. I'm going with you, Angelite, and that's final. Larkham said no words, he merely smiled at his Forsterson. Angelite reacted by wiping away her tears and furling her tremoring lips. Thank you, she stammered. Since losing her friends, she had felt all alone and was 1,000 miles away from home. This one kind gesture was miraculous to her. Maldream reached out and wrapped his arms around her. I'll get you back home, he said. The priestess returned the gesture and hugged the tribal tighter, sniffing sporadically. Larkham had to turn away briefly. This was the proudest moment of his life. He was never known for shedding a tear throughout all his years, but on this occasion, the old bugger couldn't help it. So, Angelite, Maldream spoke quietly in her ear. When shall we get going? Withdrawing slightly to face Maldream, while still embracing him, she replied in kind. At dawn, we'll have to traverse north through the... Oh, what was it called? The Deadfield Plains. I would opt to go around. It doesn't sound homely, but weighing up the risks, in my mind, I think it would be faster to just go straight. As much as I'd like to disagree, Larkham said. You're right. Just be sure you both travel when the sun is out or when the moon is full. Don't worry, Maldream said. I've been through there enough times. You have nothing to be worried about, Angelite. I know you've wanted to spread your wings for a while, Larkham said, gripping Maldream's shoulder. I have faith in the both of you. Something on the wind is different, and the spirits have been quiet for almost a week. But now, come to think of it, it's only since you left and returned with that weapon that they have suddenly fallen silent, even in my dreams. And silence is good in the spirits' books, is it? Maldream quipped cheekily. You had better hope so, Larkham muttered, his gaze fierce. Let me see the sword for a moment. Have it your way, Maldream said, finally letting go of Angelite to withdraw the blade from its metallic sheath. Just be careful now, old man, this thing is sharp. I'm serious, don't run your finger across it. Larkham gripped the dark, two-handed blade with an iron-like fist. Lifting it horizontally, he rested the flat edge on his spare palm. It feels just like water. I have never seen such a weapon, Angelite blurted, staring intently at the smooth, pewter-colored surface, her finger also sliding across the flat edge. This was definitely not forged in Meridia. I have no idea what it is. For a moment, as Angelite touched the blade, Maldream's eyes widened, then squinted. He could have sworn he saw a faint silvery light beneath the surface. But yet, that was not all. His ears began twitching. He thought he heard faint music, like many bells ringing in rhythm. Do you two see, hear or feel anything from it? Maldream said, almost stuttering. No, Larkham said. Not me, she said. Confused, Maldream said no more. Once Angelite and Larkham had finished inspecting it, Maldream sheathed it. Whoever forged it, they were certainly a master of their craft, Angelite said. I'm baffled, but I know a teacher or two at home who may know more about it. You mean in Meridia? Maldream said. Yep, Angelite replied. I guess that gives you another reason to come along. It certainly does, Maldream said. But don't get me wrong, even if I had my old spear, I'd accompany you anyway. I have no doubt, she said, unable to contain a weak smile. You're a lovely soul. Lovely? Maldream gawked, raising an eyebrow. I wouldn't go that far. Larkham fell silent for a while as the two chatted, his wrinkled brow stooped, weathered fingers caressing his grey-streaked beard in deep thought. Something is different, but what? He wondered privately, knowing he could detect nothing from the blade. Oh, about your companions, Maldream said, catching Larkham's ears in that instant. I have it handled, Maldream, Larkham interrupted. We will give them a proper burial tomorrow, priestess, if that is all right with you, of course. Angelite was taken aback. Stiffening her posture, she held herself in check. That would be so kind and amazing, thank you, but could we make it a partial send-off? A partial send-off? Larkham asked. Well, you see, Angelite said, I have an option to bring you and the rest of your tribe to Meridia safely, without having to travel all together, which could draw attention and be much more dangerous. Larkham coughed abruptly, in utter surprise, but steadied himself. You're sure you are able to do this for us, Miss Rose? May I ask how? I was lucky enough to find a chunk of crystal on our way here, she said. It's a special kind, though, which I was going to craft into something called a prismatic core. What's so special about it? Maldream asked. My thinking is, I'm going to separate it into 2 halves tonight, just before bed, with some special equipment I have on me, she said. Once I've done that, I will keep one orb, and I'll hand the other to you, Larkham. Oh well, okay then, Larkham said. But what exactly would I do with it? Give us a month to return to Meridia, but be ready to leave, she said. With each prismatic core, I will open a rift, as we will share a connection. They're rare, but over the years we have managed to stock lots of them. We use them to quickly and safely return to Meridia. Unfortunately, I couldn't get my hands on one before I left, as they had all been booked for previous outings. So, if you're saying what I think you're saying, Maldream said, barely grasping her knowledge, then we'll travel to the north to reach the port, get on a boat, and then, once we're in Meridia, you'll be able to somehow get our tribe to Meridia too. That's exactly it, she said. These special crystals can create a bridge, so to speak. From what I understand, they are quantum entangled. Quantum what now? Both men gawked, eyeing each other with raised eyebrows. Entangled? Sorry, she said. I'm getting ahead. Basically, the crystal here with Larkham will react with the one I'll take to Meridia, forming a bridge or portal. So all you have to do is walk right on through and you'll be in Meridia. You'll know it's ready, as the crystal core you have will raise above the ground and chime. All right, I see now, Larkham said, grinning. And once there, we will bring along your companions, so you can bury them with your customs. We have ways to preserve them until then. Yes, please, she said, fighting back the tears again. That would be so lovely, they deserve the best. Not a problem, Larkham said. Leave everything to me. You two had better return to your tents for now and get some rest for the morning. I hear you, Maldream said, yawning and stretching. I'll grab my food off of Feldream tomorrow, and I'll be all set. I have my own rations too, Angelite said. Although some extra water would be great. Again, priestess, Larkham said, placing his hand on her shoulder. I'll see to it. I'll make sure you two are fully stocked for your journey. Just leave your bags and packs outside your tents and I'll organize the rest. Thanks, old man, Maldream said. Awfully generous of you, although. What you up to? Nothing, Larkham said sincerely. I just want to make sure you two have the best chance to make it to Meridia. In every way, you're both beacons of hope for us right now. It is a sorry existence we live here, and I've always wanted better for all of us. Meridia is the answer. Smiling, the young tribal lost the need to poke fun at the old man. Instead, he focused on Angelite and jested, I guess this makes me your bodyguard. Her reply was a simple grin and a nod. Larkham looked on, also nodding his head side to side with a smile. I wish I could come with you both, being the impatient old fool I am, but I'll contain my excitement for now, Larkham said. Both of you be careful. And Maldream, I must also say this. You've always been restless, so go out into the world and find your true path in life. Find your meaning. Find your purpose. Well, I can't say that you're wrong, Muldream replied, averting his gaze, looking to the priestess. For a while now I've wanted to leave, so in a way this'll give me a good reason to. It's as if this has been your calling all along, Larkham said. I don't know about that, Muldream scoffed. But I'll run with it. All things that happen in life happen for a reason, Muldream, Larkham said. I don't for a moment believe in coincidence. You could be right, Muldream half-heartedly chuckled. But I think I'll wait a little longer until I have a final judgment on that. In time you'll see, Angelite said. I, for one, believe in fate, a synchronization of spirit. We'll see what our trip brings, Muldream said. I'm looking forward to it. Larkham bid one final farewell to the pair and retired for the night in the camp below. Angelite turned and strode across the balcony, gazing at the cosmos. Muldream joined her out of curiosity. For a long while, they stared at the stars. All was silent, save for the cold wind brushing them softly as it whistled through the dilapidated temple. Beautiful night, don't you think? She said. I love the stars, they're so different in this part of the world. Yeah, I quite often stare at them too, Muldream replied. I just wish this city provided something more pleasing to look at. The people in the streets are best avoided when we get going. Yeah, Meridia is nothing like the Dark Age lands. Oh hey, listen, I would love to chat more, Angelite said, unable to contain another yawn. But we'll have to save it for the morning, if that's okay? Of course it is, he said smiling. I'll take you back to your tent,